Hello VW community, back in the garage today, although I was in the garage last night till 10 p.m. putting the front end together. I mounted the lower control arms. The idler arm I finally got back because I was waiting on another bushing and the guy up the road pressed it in for me. I'll show a picture of that here. And the idler arm's back on, the whole front end's buttoned together. Everything's good. The sway bar, I miscalculated. I thought it was hanging down further in the front than it was, and here I just jacked it up because my buddy told me to. He's like, just jack it up, don't worry. And he was right, so I jacked it up. Got all the urethane bushings on it. I'll show you around under the car real quick. There's so many videos on YouTube of how to put a control arm on and a ball joint in that, you know, I'm not going to bore you with stuff like that. I'm going to take my drums though and clean them up, and I'll do a video of knocking the races out. Some people may not like how I do it, some people may. Some people have the tools for putting the races in and out. I just use a punch, you know, and then I use a socket, of course, the same diameter to put them back in, but I'm putting the inner and outer wheel bearings on, so. But I'll show you around under the car. Just take a look. Okay. Look at that. The old bushings were rounded out. They were egg-shaped inside, so, but sway bar got painted up. I didn't have a bead blaster or anything. I just wire wheeled them. But got that all buttoned up. New ball joints. New tie rods in and out. All new brake lines, brake hoses, everything. And let's take a look under here. This is kind of tricky, but you see the new steering dampener. Everything is new. Even the bushing in the steering box, if you remember my other video. So that's all done. I still got to get under here now. I did the front, but I still got to get under and wire wheel all that and paint, which is fine. That's what it's all about. New urethane bushings in the control arms. So let's take a look at the other side. Okay, same over here, you know. All new, all hooked up and done. There's also urethane bushings from the sway bar to the control arms. And there's the idler arm all cleaned up. I probably can't get you up in there. I'll try. But there's the idler arm control box, or whatever it's called. I'm trying to hold the light in the phone with two fingers, but that's all done and cleaned up. I got to replace that fuel hose. As you see, it's nasty. So I'm gonna pull the fuel line off of there, and in the back it's disconnected, going to nothing. I'm going to spray carb cleaner down through it, like a decent amount, and then blow through it with my air nozzle to clean it out. If you do that, don't go crazy and crank your air up to like 100 pound or something silly. I'll probably run it at like 20 pound or something, you know, 20 psi to clean the fuel line out. Definitely needs new fuel hose. So that'll get done too. Like I said, I mean, my floor pans are solid as hell, but they all need wire wheeled. Everything needs cleaned up and painted, which I'll be doing. So it'll look good when it's done. Here's something for you here. I don't know how I'm gonna get an angle. Give me a minute here. Well, this is the best I'm gonna do, I guess. When you remove the sway bar on a 73 Super, I think 73 and 74, this whole bulkhead comes off, and right behind there is the hole where you pull your shifting tube out. Now, in other Beetles, there's just, you don't do that. You know, there's just a little plate there with two bolts you pull off. But one thing I wanted to address to everybody puts them plates just back on. When I pulled that off to pull the shifting tube out that front hole, and I noticed there was some factory like seam seal around it, make sure when you put that back on, around your hole where your shifting tube comes out the front, put a little sealer around there before you put the plate on, or you're going to have water getting in your tunnel and you're not going to be happy. I used 3M strip caulk because I've used that on a lot of cars. Here's a picture of it here. And that's what I used because it's a really good sealer and it stays soft. So, okay, back here, we're all cleaned up and ready. I'm just waiting on wheel cylinders. Should be here in 4 or 5 days. I was going to repack my rear bearings and take them apart, but they honestly seem very smooth. So I think I'm going to leave them alone for now. I don't know. We'll see. If I pull it apart, got a little play, I'll show you. But both sides are done in the back and ready to rock and roll. I have new brake shoe spring kits, all that. I'll probably get some of that together. I'm just waiting on the wheel cylinders. I'm going to bend the rear brake lines and get them ready to put on. So that's out of the way. So one thing I wanted to say is always think. I took this all apart and pulled, and the little cable come out broken in my speedometer cable. Well, here it is here. Crappy part about it is I already mounted my dash. I could have did it with ease while that dash was apart, but I'll have to play around trying to weasel it in there now. So I noticed with the urethane bushings came this. I never opened it because I didn't need to. It's not a big deal. When they give you this with your new bushings for your control arms and that, it is that. Exactly what I said, dielectric grease in my last video. That's all this is. And it won't corrode rubber, and, you know, you got to lubricate the bushings all up. But that's what it is. So, just a little tip there. Make sure you torque everything right. Yeah, well, I got this out. Torque all your bolts to specs on that front end. Trust me, it'll be worth it. And when you store your torque wrench, I should say store it when you're done using it for the day, unwind it, send it back down to like 0 pounds or even 5 pounds, but don't keep it wound up to where 20, 40, 100 pounds, because that spring in there, it'll keep it too tight and compressed. So when you're done using it for the day, always unwind it down to, like, you know, 5 pound or 0 preferably. So there's a little tip for you also. Okay, we got our old drum here. It's actually in good shape. I'm going to run some memory cloth around here and see how it cleans up. If it doesn't clean up the way I want it to, then I'll send it out down the street and have them go ahead and put them on a machine and cut them a little bit. But they seem okay. Very smooth. It was just from sitting. You get the seal out. Wow, that popped out kind of easy. Oh, well, I already took the front wheel bearing out, so they don't look that bad, but I'm putting new ones in anyhow. There's no point in... They don't look that bad. Oh well. I bought new ones. They're very cheap. Figure you better put new ones on now instead of messing around later. I gotta get this cleaned out so I can get the races knocked out. I just pretty much put a chisel down in there and knock them out. I don't have that race kit or whatever the heck it is to get them out. Wow, there's a ton of grease in there. Okay. Jeez. Somebody really put a lot of grease in there. Let me get a paper towel. Push it out the front because there's a lot. Maybe it ain't gonna push out. Holy smokes. Wow. Oh well. Go like that. Yeah, somebody definitely greased it up good. They weren't playing. They used a lot. Okay, when you look down through there and you'll fill it with your screwdriver, I'll try to grab a picture of it. No, it won't be too hard to. You'll feel a lip in there around the race because your race is right here. So you want to bring that screwdriver down through and hit it right there. I hope that's showing up, I can't tell. But it'll make sense once you see it. But let's see if I can get that out. The camera's probably gonna bounce, hold on. Get it right on the lip. Definitely moving. Go around it. There's your race. Sorry about that. I knew you guys were going to go for a ride. There's the race. It came out. That's what your bearing goes into. And it just goes upside down. Goes inside and pounds back in. So I'll get a socket the same diameter to pound it back in. So, alrighty. Got to get the other one out. So I got to go through the opposite way and pound it out. Try to get some of this grease off. It's hard to see it. That one looks like a little more of a bugger because I don't see the lip sticking out. So that won't be as fun. See if I can use a smaller screwdriver. Probably break this one. Try to catch that lip, and then I forget. Okay, inside of here, there's two little slots. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Inside, there's, I don't know, there's little slots here, one on each side, and that's where you can put your punch in to knock the bearing out. Let me see if I can bring you up here to see it. See that little slot right in here? Right there. See that slot? There's one on each side. And that's where you can get your punch through to hit the race out. It'll knock the race out of there, putting a punch in there. You'll see it. And go to the other side of it. Out it came. There it is. Oh crap, wait. It was hitting the bench. It just flew. That's how you get the races out. It's not a hard job. You can do it yourself. It's easy. Just knock them out. You don't need a special tool or anything weird. But when you're putting the new ones in, make sure you have the socket the same diameter as it. Okay, let me get the new ones. So I bought Beck Arnley bearings, and the other was Fag. Oh well. There's the new bearings, and of course there's your race. Race is going to go, remember, you have a bevel. I know audience know this, I don't know why I'm filming it, and then your bearing sits in there, blah, blah. But this part goes down inside, okay? Made in Vietnam. Wow. Okay, so put that in there like that. 36 millimeter socket fits that pretty good, enough to get it started. I don't know if you guys are going to bounce or not. And new race. There's dirt in there still. That's seated. Make sure you'll see a lip that it sits on in there. Make sure you pound it down far enough so it's seated, because if not, you're going to have an issue. And mine is seated. all the way around. Alrighty, it's seated. Man, I need some rags. Need to go down and steal bath towels, cut them up until I get caught. Then I'll be asking who I can move in with. Just making sure it's seated all the way. Yep, it did. Okay. And of course, in the end, you grease up your bearings really, really good and boom, set them in. Make sure everything's moving smooth. But I gotta do the front one, so. Okay. A little. There's your race. Remember now, like I said, this flat side goes down in because you want your bearing to be able to sit into it. You'll know. You guys are not dumb, ladies, guys. Okay, I gotta get a socket to fit this. Let me give it a little tap just to... I don't have a socket to fit. I have one to fit the race, but it's hitting the drum, so it's only about 30% of the way in. Don't know where I came up with that figure. A punch. Make sure it's flat on the bottom. Take your time. Go around it. Work your way around. Don't hit it just on one side. Check it, I'm almost there. Don't hit the inside of the race where that bearing sits there. You're going to be bumming out. Okay, and let me hit this side a little more. Okay, and it is seated the whole way around. Make sure, it's really hard to see on film, that this race, it's sitting in a ridge here. Make sure it's flush with it all the way around. Then take your bearing, make sure it spins in it real nice, like there's nothing weird going on. Okay, now I'm not gonna pack the bearings or put them in yet because I gotta wire wheel all this and clean it up. But, and you want new rear seals. Never, these are cheap. Don't do that. Buy new ones. Quit being cheap, please. Okay, I decided against spraying the drum, to be honest with you. I'm gonna have these cut though, just a slight cut off of them, I guess. I'm switching over to disc very shortly, so I don't even know if it's worth the aggravation. In all honesty, I'll run some memory cloth around here to clean it up a little. They're not scored at all. If you've seen them in person, you'd see what I mean. Okay, take your grease, put it in this race. Make sure you get a lot in there. Can't hurt. A lot of guys shove grease all the way down through. I don't really know why, but they do. But I guess maybe they have some extra when you're on the road if you need it. Not sure. But I usually grease up the spindle. That's what I do. Okay, so now you're going to take your bearing. Piece of dirt in there, that wasn't good. And you want to get that grease all down inside of these bearings. You keep pushing it in. I'm sure a lot of you aren't even watching this part, but I push it in so it gets inside. See how it's coming out of there? You want to get it in really good. Hope it's making sense what I'm doing. It's actually squirting out the sides of the bearings. they sell a handy little thing you can put your bearing in, and it pushes the grease into it, but I've always just done it manually. As much as I like buying tools, I like buying parts better. So just keep pushing it in until you get it inside. It's coming out there, I can see it. Then push it in the other side, inside the bearings. Get it inside. You can see how my method is. It don't mean that everybody should do it my way. It's just what I do. Should have the heater on in the garage today. It's 28 out, but I didn't feel like messing around. And I'm being cheap. I'm cheap on myself, but not the car. Okay, I always stick my fingers in here and spin it a little. Yeah, it's in there. Okay. Then, of course, put it around the outsides of it. Pop it into place. Give me a second here. Wipe that off. And I just kind of get in there and spin a little bit. Okay, there's the new Beck Ornley seal. Make sure where you see it inverted, that goes down inside. Your flat side goes out, just like that. And I always use a rubber mallet and just pound it in. You're probably bouncing around. You're on the workbench with me. Okay. My finger's slipping. I can't spin the bearing. Bearing's spinning good. Okay. Flip. Okay, and here's the outer bearing. It's just a tiny thing. Little wee one. Okay. Alrighty, got that done. There we go. It's spinning very nicely. Alright, everything's all cleaned up. De-adjust your brakes all the way because you want the drum to be able to slide on. Got them de-adjusted. Make sure everything's cleaned up in here. We want to grease this whole shaft up here. So let's do that right now. Okay. Where are you going on? There it is. Let your bearing don't fall out. Make sure everything's spinning nice and smooth. Alrighty. Every time I say okay and alright, take a shot. You won't make it to the end of the video. I have a habit of saying that. Alright. Take your washer, see the little slot, line it up with the slot there. Just like that. There we go. Alrighty. This, just make sure there's no dirt on the threads. Okay, remember this is the driver's side. So left tightens it. I don't like the way that feels. Wait a minute. Okay, try again. Must have been some dirt in the threads from it laying under the car. Feels crummy. Cleaned the threads out. Came off fine. You gotta watch if you go anywhere to get it worked on, but if they're working on Beetles, they know to turn this one the opposite way on the driver's side. Why that feels like that. The threads look fine. Must be a little bit of dirt on the nut. But anyhow, okay, so when you're doing this, don't get on here and crank it tight. You just want to seat the bearing, just like that. Make sure it isn't wobbling side to side or anything. I'm going to go just a little tighter, just to seat them. Make sure you ain't got no wobble in it. There we go. Just give it a little shake, because these bearings don't get real tight, or put on real tight. Back it off just a hair. That's it. That's all you do. You're just seating them, is what you're doing. I just keep tweaking it a little. You don't want no drag on it or anything. Okay, that is a 6mm. Like I said, the torque on these, if you could get a torque wrench on them, technically are only like 8 pound or 9 pound. It isn't very much. So tighten that up so it don't go anywhere. Watch it, you'll see it pull together here. Don't go berserk and break it. That's it. Okay, that's done. I won't film the other side because it's just going to be repetition. I don't like boring people. I already do that enough. So, okay. The front end's almost done. I just got to do the drum on the other side. And that's it. The front end is complete. And then I'm waiting on wheel cylinders. Nothing I can do. Is what it is. I'll keep wire wheeling and painting underneath the car. Okay, so we got a little bit accomplished today. Well, actually a lot. I just didn't film a lot of that front end last night. Like I said, I was in the garage till 10 p.m., which I enjoy that, you know, and it gives my wife some time away from me talking about Beetle stuff. But I just got to do the passenger side drum. I'll put that together and put it on, and I'm going to move to the back in about 3 days, 4 days. The wheel cylinders should be here. And I'll film putting the back brakes on and the wheel cylinders and all that. But the front end's complete. That's it. All new bushings. Everything has been replaced in the front. Everything. So shouldn't have no shimmies or anything strange. The parts were tired. Even the ball joints, when I took them off, you couldn't even move them. They were just frozen in place. So tie rod's about the same thing. But she's been sitting for, I know for a fact, 20 years. But I think it's been longer. I could tell by things I find on it, and it's not a bad thing. This car might have been only on the road for about 15 years. I don't think it was on the road that long, and I think that's why it's so solid. So, okay, well, I'm going to put the passenger side drum on, do the bearings over there, and I'll see you guys in about 3-4 days. Thanks for being here. I truly appreciate it.